Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Monday, the 3rd day of October 2022. Well, I hope everybody had a good weekend and a good week last week. Uh, we are continuing to do whatever last bit of harvest that we have. My husband found a few more ears of corn out there that he gave to the chickens. Oh my God, they were just so happy. They love fresh corn. And we're still getting these massive zucchinis that hide, and they love that too. Any fresh produce, chickens just love it. And eventually, when the pumpkins are done, they'll be getting those as well. Pumpkins are great for chickens. You can use them as little bowls for food if you want to, but generally ours just destroy them, so it doesn't ever work out that way. But the pumpkin seeds are great because they're a natural dewormer, and so it helps them. Kind of prepare for the winter and all of that. We a lot of what we grow, we end up giving to them, and it just gives them some extra, you know, fresh food to eat, and gets lots of vitamins and whatnot. So if you have chickens, remember you can give them a lot of your garden. And when you only have two people living in the house, you just grow way too much. At least we do. And what we don't, freeze or can, we just give to them, and you know, they expect it. So anyway, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the esoteric influences. One thing I wanted to say here first, let me get this up on the screen here. Mercury ended its retrograde yesterday, but you always have the time before and the time after. Some people say a week before and a week after. Some people say longer, but I don't know. Just be aware that if things are not settling down communication wise or whatever for you, just give it a few more days, a week maybe, and it should settle out. Currently we are in, as of yesterday, first quarter moon. What that means is the leadership skills are strong, with likely high expectations of others. You may feel some of that. It's also I kind of see it as a balance between light and dark. So between the full moon and the new moon, you have the first quarter moon. And so just kind of keep that in mind, going forward here energetically. But today, expressing your feelings to a close partner may be challenging, and dropping resistance may be favored over insisting on your own perspective. This could be a temporary situation. Again, it could be Mercury retrograde related or not, or it could indicate a new path is developing, maybe. Either way, follow your intuition and remain positive should an unexpected problem or reaction occur on either your part or your partner's part. Remember that there's potential as one phase ends and another begins, so accept the situation for what it is, and if necessary, give both you and your partner time to regroup. It may take choosing what actually deserves your attention over enabling expectations that are unrealistic. And if so, at least you'll focus on what really matters here. But again, this could just, if anything like that crops up today, it just could be a little leftover Mercury retrograde stuff happening. So I wouldn't take it too seriously unless it's something that reflects an ongoing problem. And then, you're going to have to talk about it. So, and who knows, there could be a new understanding that develops between you and your partner if you just sit down and have an honest, forthright conversation, if that's what it takes. So let's go ahead and do the runes and get those started. Remember, the runes act as a significator for the reading, kind of the as above, so below aspect, with the cards sort of giving more details about what's going on, or what appears to be going on anyway today. Well, we have Hagalaz, the witch rune. It's the 9th rune of the Elder Futhark, one of the Norn runes. Hagalaz, Isa, and Nathis are the Norn runes. Well, in order to be, I think it'd be Hagalaz, Nathis, and then Isa, but anyway, we're talking about transformation within a fixed framework with Hagalaz. So again, it's, if you relate that to the esoteric influences and maybe having a conversation with a partner that then opens some new understanding. That could be an example of that, where you're transforming something, but it's not like you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater to do it, right? It's just which is an odd expression, isn't it? But my mother used to say it anyway. So it's just it's kind of an interesting way of looking at things. It's influencing. If you look at it in terms of spell work, you could look at it in terms of influencing something without, make everything crashing down around you. Just kind of giving it maybe a little bit of a nudge. But on the other hand, that nudge can end up being very transformative going forward and open new ideas and new perceptions and all of that. So let's go ahead, though, and take the 4 elemental geomancy runes, and I'll throw them down and see what we have today. It's kind of like throwing down dice, but not. Let's see. I'll put them in order. Oh, Fortuna Major. So some kind of transformation then within a fixed framework, where you've got your boundaries, you've got your values, you've got your principles, you've got some kind of structure here, but you're going to transform something within that then takes you to a level of greater fortune. And that would be Fortuna Major. So the active principles would be water and earth, so emotions and change, also momentum, and then the physical side of self, material security. So, it basically not, the passive influence for fire and air. So will and intellect is a little more passive here. You've just got some momentum going then. And with Hagalaz, it gives you the ability to transform that momentum into something successful. So that's one way to look at this. We'll see. We'll see where the cards take us. It may take us in a little bit different direction. Fortunately, that's why there's more than one interpretation. It's not really, they all kind of are the same sort of thing, but, it's the same underlying principles. So whatever, Hagalaz is like the cosmic ice egg, if you will. So it's the idea of, or not that cosmic ice egg, but hail. And so it's like when hail comes in, well, it kind of is a cosmic ice egg, isn't it? Hail is. So maybe that is what it is. The thing about that, though, is, hail comes in, it can be very destructive. It can cause great change, but then it melts and it's all gone. And all you're left is the transformation, or, the disaster outside. We had really big hail one year. We don't get big hail here. But one year we had hail that was, quarter size or better. And it stayed on the ground for quite some time in the shady areas. But it damaged everything. It damaged our cars. It damaged our trees. It killed birds. It was very, those of you who live in hail areas, you know what I'm talking about. But we've never seen anything like that before. We've seen hail, but nothing like that, and nothing since. Well, this is a completely major arcana day. So the transformation, maybe we're talking with major arcana cards, we're talking soul archetype. So this seems to be some maybe some soul level change, perhaps, or becoming aware of who you are as a soul. Not everybody understands or connects with the idea that we're souls in these bodies for however long we're here, and however many times we come back and into this whole scenario. But that's what we are, and I think that during this time, if you want to look at the concept of ascension, it can be seen in a variety of ways. But what it is at its heart is the idea that we remember that we're souls and that we ascend to that frequency instead of being in the, in other words, we turn our attention to that frequency, that higher frequency, and attempt to raise that in ourselves at all times. And we do that by basically transmuting ego into spirit. And that's just a really fancy way of saying, don't give the the ego any more attention. Look at things from a spiritual perspective instead of the reactive ego perspective, which is basically what we talk about here every time we come together and do a reading. It's how do you manage all of that? How do you see things from a higher perspective and let that govern your reactions, let that govern your decisions and all of that. And so when we see Hagelas and Fortuna Major, along with, three major arcana cards, well, so we've got a 3, 5, so we've got the Hierophant, which is a 5, that's divine mastery. We've got the Lover's card, which is a 6 card. That's integration, that's discrimination, unification, duality, balance, polarity. But we'll talk about that one. And then we have 3, the Empress. I'm just going to leave them in the order, which, the Empress, of course, is a mother aspect of self. It's the womb, it's abundance, it's receptivity, beauty, love, fertility. But we're going to begin with the Hierophant. It's interesting, both the Hierophant and the Empress wear crowns that are technically triplicities. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yep. A little bit different presentation, whereas in the Lovers we see something different with the angel's hair sort of sticks out and it's kind of all, ethereal looking, really. But let's go ahead and start with the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant is about divine wisdom. You see the Pope and you see the 2 monks down below. You see triplicity. Now you can look at that as I don't know what it's called. I don't know what, but whether it's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, that whatever that's called. And you see you see a level of balance there. You see 3 you see 2 there. He's holding his fingers like this. So there's 3 there. You see 3 levels here on the scepter. You see triplicity, 1, 2, 3. You see the crosses again. You're looking at the same sort of thing there. You see 3 crosses there, but you also see 2 more on his feet for a total of 5. This is the 5th card of the major arcana. You see down here at the bottom, you see the crossed keys, which is knowledge and tradition. And you see the 2 pillars that he sits between. Again, a type of balance, similar to what you see in the High Priestess card. But basically, we're looking at mercy, idealism, a wise mentor maybe, mastery, hidden knowledge, divine wisdom. So again, it's asking us to get our awareness from spirit, get our awareness from what we already know to be true, and leave the reactive ego over there somewhere. Force it to rise in its own level to where you are instead of interacting on that level with people. Just refuse to do it. We think that we have to get into it with people, and we don't. We can choose to be quiet about what's happening. We can just simply observe and find the spiritual components to whatever it is. What is the lesson, in other words, that you're trying to learn? Because in a sense, that's what's happening here. You have the divine teacher with his students, basically. And so again, as those lessons of life continue, instead of devolving into, some mental chaos about it all, rising above it all and saying, well, okay, what's the real lesson here for me to learn? Either it's, and maybe you're watching something else play out for other people and you're learning it that way. You're not actually participating in it. You're just observing. In a sense, that's what the soul does. It observes. And it doesn't really get into the muck of things. And when you do that, you have a little bit better integration within the self. Here you see the sun representing the Creator's rays shining down behind the angel who sits on a cloud. We see depictions of, we'll say, Adam and Eve. But you'll notice that you've got the tree of life, or tree of knowledge rather, tree of knowledge behind her. You see the snake, the serpent. You see Adam over here with his little spindly little oak tree. You see a mountain behind, but where's the mountain leaning toward? The mountain's leaning toward her, toward the woman. The idea of the woman being the lesser of the two, of the lesser, being born of Adam's rib is nonsense, in my opinion. The idea of who did the angel give the, or the watchers, if you will, who did they give the information to? They gave it to the woman. They gave it to the women of the area. The idea that and Eve had the strength to basically eat from that tree of knowledge, to take that first bite of the apple. And where is she focused? She's looking toward heaven. She's looking toward the angel, isn't she? She's looking towards spirit and higher awareness. Whereas he's looking at her. He's not really concerned. So the true strength of, if you want to look at the two individuals, the true strength here is found in Eve, not Adam. In my opinion, that's why you see the Empress come before the Emperor in the tarot. I think that she gives birth to the world and to humanity, while he's just simply the consort. And it's not to say that he doesn't have his own strengths. He does. The emperor has a lot of strength. He can be a warrior. He can be, very much similar to the kings in the court court part of the tarot. You're looking at somebody who does have a lot of strength, but he doesn't come. I mean, it's basically this way. All right. You have the Empress, and then you have the Emperor. And as you can see, the strength of knowledge is given to Eve, because she's going to be the one that's going to give birth to creation, okay, to humanity. So again, we're talking about balance and duality, polarity, choice, the self in others, how you see yourself in other people. If you look at all that is, the Creator is all that is, then there is nothing but the Creator. And then everything that you see is simply the self and the other side of self. And what can you learn from that exchange? Does it create judgment, or does it suspend it? When you're really looking at when you see other people, are you really just simply looking at other aspects of the Creator, or the aspects of yourself? And so rather than, and then if everything is a perception-based experience for each one of us, we really are creating the world that we see, and the world that we need to see in order to deal with the lessons that we came here to learn. But I think that it's an interesting card, and I don't know, maybe other tarot readers see this differently than I do, but I think the polarity is probably, from a spiritual perspective, is more heavily weighted on the woman than on the man. I think that she is the one that shows the compassion. She's the one that raises the at least traditionally raises the children from the moment, as they're growing within you, and you have the child. They're with mom, and I think that the lessons that they teach their children, it comes from a different place. It comes from a more receptive energy than the masculine side of self does. That's a more projective type of energy. And so I find it interesting that the way it's drawn is that the mountain bends toward her. And so the strengths and all of that and the ability to meet challenges seems to rest more with Eve and the knowledge that she's gained to deal with all of that. So if you think about it that way, you're looking at the goddess side of self, the goddess presence within. And, um, whether you're looking at the Hierophant as a masculine presence or not, it speaks to the notion of the female pope. Uh, I think that whenever you talk about spirituality, though, I really think you're talking about the receptive side of self, the observant side of self, the quiet inner knowledge that you have. And in terms of Hagalaz, I think that and where we are in terms of the earth ascending and humanity ascending, I think that it's that side of self that drives that. Versus the ego side of self, which it just gets in the way of it all. And then from there, once you understand that whole energetic thing, then you move to the Empress, which again, look at the comparison of the crowns. I mean, yes, they look different, but it's that level, that the triplicity of the levels here in the layering of the stars on the crown here. Now, his aren't stars, his are actually the crosses. If you look very closely, you'll see that. They're just actually a series of crosses. But here you see Venus on the shield below, the heart-shaped shield. She's actually pregnant in this. You can't see it too well here. But she holds a scepter in her right hand, and her left hand rests comfortably on her left knee. And again, she's the mother aspect of self. She represents love and fertility, the womb, abundance. But again, also beauty and success. But again, she's the receptive presence. And I think that you see the receptive presence here throughout, whether you're looking at the two monks below receiving the blessing of the Pope, receiving the training or the teachings from the Pope. They're below him in stature, and they're in a receptive type of a mode. And there's power, I think, in that level of receptivity, especially from a spiritual standpoint. To not react, to not judge, to simply observe what's going on, and have that literally transform your life. It's like when you be quiet long enough and just listen, sometimes you learn more and gain a better understanding than if you're talking at the same time. So because then you just maybe hear yourself and you don't really hear what other people have to say. So taking a more receptive approach can be quite transformative, and can lead to the idea of greater fortune or greater security, greater understanding, however you want to see, Fortuna Major. Again, it depends on how you want to look at it in terms of transformation from a receptive presence. I think that gives you a little more strength, or maybe even considerably more strength, inner strength anyway, than being out front with the ego and asserting your own positions and whatnot. So for today, the next few days, consider what expanding on the receptive side of self will do for you, in terms of a greater understanding of what's going on. Because once you understand the overall picture of something, I think people tend to be less judgmental about things. They soften their reactions to things, maybe choosing to not react at all, and just letting letting that information just sort of sit there, and so that you're aware of it. But actually responding to it, maybe you don't need to. It's a very powerful feeling, especially if someone is expecting that from you and you don't give it to them, because it's almost like they want the fight, they want the argument, and if you don't give it to them, they don't know what to do. You know, they're if you just keep plodding along, like, okay, yeah, I hear you, but I'm not, I don't have anything to say, I don't have anything to add, you know, where does that go for them? And so there's a lot of strength and power in that quiet receptiveness, that quiet resolve. And you know, try it, see how that feels. It's again, it's in the terms of Hagalaz, you're basically leaving who you are. You're not changing your values. You're not changing how you see something or how you experience something. You're not changing any of that. That still remains the same. You're just not saying anything, and you're just taking it all in, and you're and if somebody's trying to get you to take the bait or rise to anger or whatever, if you don't give that to them, then again, they have to struggle with that themselves. That's their ego, doing what it's doing. And again, if you're transmuting ego into spirit, you're not giving the ego any attention. So I wrote a book called Shifting Perception. It's the one I wrote before this last one, Herbal Magica. And it's got a bunch of meditations and journeying exercises in it. But basically, that's what it talks about, where you're shifting your perception to higher awareness and the soul, the presence of the soul, and being more observant instead of getting into it with people and reacting, getting into the reactive ego, and things that you can do to understand that process, and then some journeying exercises where you can change the dynamic of your focus and your intention. And I think that this particular reading, I wouldn't have maybe started out just looking at the runes and say, well, this is what's going to end up happening here. But there is this receptiveness that runs through all three cards, that are the fact that they're all three major arcana cards, the fact that they're all three, 6 and 5's 11, 12, 13, 14. 5 is change. Again, 5, being the change that you need within to see things from a different perspective. And when you do, the whole idea of, and again, with the active principles here being water and earth, those are passive presences. Those are receptive presence, receptive energies, and I think that it's guiding us to that level. And when we become that, when we sit in our own source presence, basically, then we're not entering the fray. We're not getting into the reactive ego, and we're keeping our vibration higher, which is important right now because there's so much weird, hateful conflict going on. And it's like I feel this aversion to it. It's like I don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to know about it. But you can't help but know about it. But I don't want it to enter my own peace of mind. We have a right to that. We have a right to our own joy, to our own peace, our own inner peace. And I think that the reading is suggesting that, to learn the divine mastery that we need to have in order to do that, to realize that is who we are, and we're here to, and the soul should be driving this experience, not the ego. So think about that. And, the change that happens can be quite profound, which is the point. It's what's supposed to happen. So it's not like, uncharted territory. No, it's just a return to home. That's all it is. A return to who we really are. So anyway, interesting Monday reading. Thanks for watching. And check out the blog. The stuff is all up for the week. All the stuff I do. I changed the herb of the week to herb of the month. I did tarot card of the week. I put that in there. I'm going to keep that the same. If you want to get the newsletter, there's if you just scroll down on the left side panel there, you'll see a sign up. You just put your email in there if you want to get some of that stuff anyway, the esoteric influences and some of the rays and the nodes and all of that. You send in information, you get that. The herb stuff you get every week, herb of the week. I do that there in the newsletter. And I put the newsletter up on the blog too. So you'll see it up above where the little headings are for the different sections. You'll see the newsletter. But if you want to get it in your inbox, and I know, I mean, our inboxes are cram full of all kinds of stuff. So you can always unsubscribe at any time and resubscribe later if it's just too much. But some people like to just look at it there, and if you want to, it's there for you. It doesn't cost anything. So there's that. And then I do a version of the esoteric influences over on Medium. I do one there, a different version of it. And then I also have a Patreon page. So if you want to follow me over there, there's links below the video. All you have to do is click on show more, scroll down past the few paragraphs I have that describe what I'm doing here. And you'll see those links down there, including the one to the website Stepping Aside. That's my blog. The web address is imsteppingaside.com. And if you haven't clicked subscribe here, I'd love you to do that and give it a like if you would. And come back again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.